Hello everyone, welcome to this session on let's agree to disagree. So it's an interesting concept of how like two people proposing their opposing views, but not really opposing views, but they're complementary. So we have two bright young stars for this session on use of anti-VEGF or laser and ROP. We have Dr. Srinivas Joshi. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Srinivas Joshi, who is the research director with the M.M. Joshi Eye Institute. He's a very, very talented young gentleman who has achieved a lot in his very young age. He has been trained in vitreoretinal surgery abroad and is a very talented surgeon, a humble soul as well. And I've always been impressed with his surgical skills. And he has achieved a lot and he is part of the ARC as well. And it's a pleasure to have Dr. Srinivas Joshi with us. And we have our own Dr. Divyansh Mishra, who is probably son of the soil, who has been trained in Shankara Eye Hospital. He has done his DNB in Shankara Eye Hospital, fellowship at Shankara Eye Hospital, and one of the very bright rising stars. And he is once again a very, very talented vitreoretinal surgeon, and he also has innovative thoughts and always comes across with very bright ideas, which are which we put across, and he has managed to get a Rangacharya award as well at his age. So it's a pleasure to have Dr. Divyansh Mishra also with us, and we'll start with Dr. Srinivas, who will be speaking about the role of anti-VEGF in ROP in the present scenario. Dr. Srinivas.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank Shankara Eye Foundation, Dr. Mahesh Shanmugam sir, and Dr. Kaushik for this wonderful opportunity. So I'll be speaking on anti-VEGFs in ROP. So we all know that right from the previous classification, we have moved on to the revised international classification in 2005, which involves a description of the aggressive form of ROP. So these are the various stages of ROP, stage 1, 2, 3, and then we have a retinal detachment in 4 and 5, and then we have pre-plus and plus diseases in the ROPs. So what are the indications for the treatment in ROP? Basically, in the type 1 ROP, which is defined as the zone 1 in any stage with plus disease, zone 1, stage 3 with or without plus disease, and zone 2, stage 2 or 3 with plus disease. So what is plus disease? We all know it very well. It's defined as the tortuosity and dilatation of the retinal vessels in the posterior pole of the eye, which increase the risk of rapid adverse progression. So why do we require anti-VEGF therapy in ROP? It's basically for the primary therapy for aggressive posterior zone 1 disease, which we call it as the AP-ROP, aggressive anterior ROPs, and sometimes when there is media haze due to aggressive posterior disease, and so as to we need to improve the visualization for the laser treatment. In cases of failed laser treatment leading to persistent neovascularization, and of course, in some cases where we do the surgery and prior to the surgery, we might require anti-VEGF therapy. So the other advantages of the anti-VEGF are the ease of administering injections, less requirement of the resources in unstable infants where laser is not possible, rapid response within a day to have a better visual fields, and better visual acuity in view of less incidence of refractive error. Laser has always been the standard and the gold standard treatment modality for the decades. However, VEGF, as we all know, plays an important role in the angiogenesis, and hence more attention is directed towards using an anti-VEGF agent in the management of ROP in the recent scenario. So the two most important drugs used are the bevacizumab after the BEAT ROP study was used in zone 1 and zone 2 posterior ROP as an alternative to laser. And comes the ranibizumab, which was used in the Rainbow trial, showed the treatment success in 80% with better ocular and systemic safety profile. In the recent study published online, though the incidence of retinal detachment was similar in eyes that received laser and anti-VEGF for ROP after 2 years, but however, there was no significant delay, which we all suspect with the anti-VEGF. So there was no significant delay in the cognitive function or the language development with either treatment modality. So in comparison to the anti-VEGFs, however, laser had a slightly higher incidence of refractive error, There was no significant difference in recurrences. And however, they reported there could be a higher rate of retreatment, but that was not statistically significant. So few limitations of the anti-VEGF can lead to delayed vascularization, recurrence in around 20% of the cases, challenging. Most importantly is the follow-up. And basically being in India, the patient compliance is very, very important. However, there are few unknown long-term effects, but at present, it is known to be safe. Once again, I thank the Shankara team for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas, for placing all the thoughts very, very succinctly, very clearly. Let's hear Dr. Divyansh. Dr. Divyansh, please.
Sorry, you're muted, Divyansh.
Okay. Yeah, good evening all, and thanks for the opportunity to be a part of this Agree to Disagree. So my topic for today is lasers in ROP. So what is ROP? What is zones and stages? It has been very nicely demonstrated by the previous studies that there are different zones: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Zone 1 is a very close or involving the most important parts like macula or optic nerve. Zone 2 is a wider area covering the nasal side, and temporal crescent is left in the zone 3. There are different stages: stage 1, stage 2. Stage 1 is where you can see just a demarcation line, as in this photograph we can see over here. And we can see an avascular retina anterior to it. And in zone stage 2, we can see some kind of a ridge formation or thickening of that demarcation line and having a more three-dimensional structure associated with it. The pre-plus and the plus, which we were discussed in the previous presentation, as you can see, dilatation and tortuosity of the blood vessels, they can have associated stage 2, where we can see some kind of a popcorns or extraretinal neovascularization, which are regressed. Or sometimes we can see those popcorns can be active, which is called as hot dogs. And in such cases, the laser is required. So this is stage 3, where there would be a pre-plus or a plus, where such kind of children would require treatment. So when do we treat in ROP? As sir has suggested before, that any stage of ROP in plus disease, which we see in zone 1, needs to be treated, or stage 3 ROP without plus, if it's again in the centermost area, zone 1, or if it is stage 2 or 3 with plus in zone 2. How did we come to that? Is by this landmark trial, something which is called as an ETROP, where they identified that early treatment is better in cases of pre-threshold eyes, where the treatment was provided in cases of pre-threshold. As we can see, the reduction in unfavorable structural outcomes from 15% to 9%, which was very significant. And that is what it proved, that wait and watch was not good for such patients or such children. It was better to treat it with laser. So something which is called as an APROP, which is an ill-defined or a zone half or zone 1 disease, which is mild appearing and easily overlooked, and that rapidly progresses to stage 5. And what do we do in a laser therapy? So it's a standard treatment presently, or a gold standard treatment, where it's less invasive, less traumatic, and it's simply to apply. You need to have a laser machine, which is commonly available with a retina specialist. There are different types of lasers, which we will discuss in the next slide. And it can be, the laser therapy can be provided by an indirect ophthalmoscope. And it can be done either in a topical anesthesia or either with the sedation. So we can use either a red laser, which is infrared laser and 810 nanometer, which provides us a larger spot size, so a lesser number of spots, and it is much safer. And it can penetrate through hazy media or vitreous images, so it can be used in those cases. And the minor disadvantages are that it can cause choroidal inflammation and difficult titration of the burns. But the green laser is the most commonest one, which is 532 nanometers, and the laser spot size is better titrated. It's less painful and causes less inflammation. As you can see over here, the laser burns with the red are larger, so the lesser number is required, and the green are smaller, so the more number is required. This is how we give a laser therapy to a child of an ROP. As you can see, the assistant is protected with the protective glasses. And in this case, we are using a green laser, where there are different settings which can be utilized. When we are doing laser, the child can be either sedated or topical anesthesia is good enough. But most important is to keep a close eye on the pulse oximeter so that the children may go into apneic spells. And how does a laser is performed? We probably mark each sectors and mark the posteriormost edge and then continue and then fill up in between all the edges. The anterior edge is also marked. And this is how a response is seen, that where if the child develops a treatable or a type 1 disease, this is after the regression, how it's seen. What are the complications associated with that? Sometimes we can have burns to the cornea, iris, or some cataract formation, as in the upper photograph we can see. The child can have some kind of apneic spells when we are doing laser. Yes, most important is a peripheral vision, visual field loss, myopia, astigmatism, squint, or amblyopia. It can be utilized as an adjuvant in cases of APROP, as we can see. When the child is treated with anti-VEGF, it requires rescue laser in certain cases, which responds very well. Post-laser examination, after 5 to 7 days, we see rather how the regression is occurring, as we can see, to see for the decreased activity and signs of regression. And if retreatment is required, probably after 2 weeks later, that can be added on. Long-term follow-up is very important. So the take-home message from my presentation is the laser is a gold standard for type 1 ROP where the treatment is required. We can use either red or green depending upon the availability and advantages and disadvantages. Laser has advantages of laser can be as an adjuvant to anti-VEGF in cases of APROP, and laser benefits overweigh the risk and side effects which is associated with it. The long-term follow-up is very important because the children may develop myopia and astigmatism. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Divyansh, for very elaborately talking about laser and ROP, the pluses and minuses. So laser has been the treatment, gold standard treatment for many years, but currently the anti-VEGF is something which people are considering. So there is no debate, both of them complemented each other. But what is this question about anti-VEGF? Can we use anti-VEGF to treat ROP in the present scenario? Yes, we can very much do that. That's what both the study, the Rainbow and the Beta ROP have told. However, anti-VEGF has some limitations in the sense that the children have to be followed up very closely and fundus examination has to be done to make sure that the normal vascularization proceeds to the retinal periphery. And it may take nearly about 6 to 8 months before we know that the anti-VEGF has done its work and the ROP is not progressing and normal vascularization is progressed to the periphery. The issue is, as the child becomes older, it becomes very difficult to examine the child. So we may have to give an anesthesia to examine the child. A premature child can be examined just by putting topical anesthetic drops, speculum, and using a depressor. But as the child grows older, it becomes very difficult to see the periphery, which is exactly what we should be seeing after an anti-VEGF treatment. So that is one limitation of anti-VEGF. Second limitation is the fact that sometimes it can develop a crunch syndrome. That is, the whole posterior hyaloid can contract and we can precipitate posterior retinal detachment in some of these children. Third, of course, the systemic effects of anti-VEGF, though many studies have shown that there are no effects, but we don't know if they have any adverse effects as the child grows. So these are the main drawbacks of anti-VEGF. A close follow-up is particularly required, which may be difficult as the child grows older. What are the advantages? Advantages, we are not destroying the peripheral retina. So these children, if the anti-VEGF works, they are likely to have a very normal peripheral vision. Second is the myopia incidence has been particularly high with laser. So this doesn't happen with anti-VEGF as well. So anti-VEGF may have to be repeated at particular intervals, and assessment of the child at particular intervals is very essential. So, and in Indian scenario, it becomes a bit difficult because the children compliance is what Dr. Srinivas mentioned. So children have to be brought to the doctors for repeated checkup, which may not be possible. So wherever it is not possible for a compliant checkup, laser would be preferable. So, and complementary in the sense when there is an APROP, non-dilating pupil, there is vitreous hemorrhage, when laser is not possible, or we need in interim situation where we stabilize the eye and anti-VEGF can be used. So in a compliant child with parents, we can continue using anti-VEGF as the sole treatment option, taking care to periodically follow up the child until normal retinal vascularization is achieved. In all other situations, we may use anti-VEGF as an interim to stabilize the eye, to allow the macula to perfuse so that we don't destroy too much of retina, particularly in APROP, posterior APROP, zone 1, zone half ROP. we allow the normal macular vascularization to develop so that we destroy lesser of the retina in the periphery and stabilize CI. So both are complementary in the present situation. As we get more longer acting anti-VEGF agents, we may be using only anti-VEGF agents to treat ROP as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas, for joining us. And thank you, Dr. Divyansh. Both of you have put across beautifully that both of you agree with each other as well as disagree with each other. Thank you once again.